Hello and welcome to a Week 1 edition of Charch Chat as we review some of the big stories from Week 1, with the exception of Tom Brady, who we've covered under a totally separate video, and you might want to look for that. So other things that fantasy owners want to pick up out of Week 1, and let me first start here. I am a believer in looking at Week 1 and panicking. Yes, panicking. Everybody always says, oh, don't overreact to Week 1, it's just 1 week, and no, I say panic. I think you learn a lot from Week 1, and it's not always the case that teams that are bad in Week 1 are going to be bad all season. It's not always the case that teams that are good in Week 1 are going to be good all season. A lot of it has to do with who they were playing, and a lot of things can change. Giants end up winning the Super Bowl after losing the first 2 weeks. However, more often than not, the things that you see and that really strike your gut in Week 1 are going to hold true for most of the season. Not necessarily every game, but for a lot of the season. I think there are some really strong trends that we can pick up right here, right now, and acting now will give you some opportunities that you will not have later on when some of these guys are more established, and some of the things where that right now you are kind of on a fringe that maybe you're hedging a little bit. Well, if those things start to appear obvious to everybody, you've missed your opportunity. So I say strike now on a lot of these things. So okay, now that we have that out of the way, let's look at some of the particulars. First, Reggie Bush, 112 receiving yards and a touchdown. If you are in a PPR league, great, keep him. If you are not, this is a great opportunity to strike. Well, he's coming off of an uncharacteristically big game. We know Reggie Bush is not a touchdown scorer. So act now on that one and strike while the iron is hot and trade Reggie Bush. Number 2, Maurice Jones-Drew, just 5 rushing attempts. Very disappointing, but I'm not panicking on this one because Albert Haynesworth is one of the best run stoppers in the game, and they were going up against Haynesworth, and they just completely got away from the run. Fred Taylor looked just okay. Maurice Jones-Drew will have his opportunities later. Not too worried about Maurice Jones-Drew. Next, Chris Johnson from the Titans, looked fantastic. I'm sold on this kid. He's going to be the guy. Lendell White doesn't worry me too much. White will still probably get goal line touches, but that might be the extent of Lendell White's role, and it might be little more than that. Chris Johnson is the man, and he looks great. I would consider trading him straight up for some of the guys that that sounds ridiculous, but even like a Larry Johnson type. I'm that high on Chris Johnson at this point. Speaking of some of the traditional guys, Frank Gore had the long touchdown run, and guys are going to see that on SportsCenter, but man, this might be another good opportunity to strike while the iron's hot here as well, because Gore's going to have some really tough games with that offense, and J.T. O'Sullivan looked just barely like an NFL quarterback, made a lot of mistakes. He didn't look terrible. It wasn't a disaster. It wasn't scratching my eyes out, but J.T. O'Sullivan's not a guy you're going to be able to rely on very often, and that means that Frank Gore's going to have a lot of up and down games, so it might be a good opportunity to let go of Frank Gore. Tim Hightower, we talked a lot about him in the preseason, and sure enough, got all the goal line use, got all the short yardage use, got a fourth and goal touchdown. I'm sorry, a short yardage touchdown and a fourth and one running opportunity. So he is cemented in that role, and he'll have some fantasy value in touchdown heavy leagues. Michael Turney looked obviously fantastic, and actually so did Jarius Norwood, who looked a lot better than he did last year, and the run blocking was fantastic for the Falcons. If only they could play Detroit every week. They'll certainly come back to earth. I'm a little bit worried about the split time there, actually, and as good as Turner looked, I think there's going to be a lot of other games where Turner gets 80 yards and Jarius Norwood ends up chipping away at like 40 of the yards, and it's too bad that you can't combine them together and get one guy who's got 120 yards. And instead, it's going to be a split there a lot, but that is going to be a run-first offense in Atlanta, and so you are going to get some pretty darn good games out of Michael Turner, who just looked great. Ricky Williams and Ronnie Brown both struggled a lot, and that was disappointing. I had fully expected that Ronnie Brown looked a little better than he would, and Ricky Williams would even cement that job, and neither was the case, as both guys struggled a lot. Jake Long will get better with time. That I think they will be able to run the ball better in some other games than this one. Unfortunately, sadly, the Jets ranked 29th against the run last year, so this was an opportunity lost for that running game, and they pretty quickly went to a pass-heavy offensive approach. Donovan McNabb always starts the season well. If not in week 1, then in weeks 2 and 3 and 4. And he's a guy where I think after a month you're usually better off trading him, because he ends up getting hurt, breaking down, receivers break down. But the fact that he had 3 100-yard receivers and his first 2 receivers didn't play, these are receivers number 3, 4, and 5, pretty remarkable. And Donovan McNabb still get it done a little bit. I wasn't a believer in the Bengals going into this season, and that was validated in week 1. Carson Palmer, 99 passing yards. That's it. You know, the Ravens aren't a shutdown pass defense anymore. So very disappointing. I'm very down on all of the Bengals. Chad Johnson, 1 catch. I mean, this is a real concern for me, and I believe that this is going to be a very inconsistent offense all season long. Next, Ray Rice, really not taking the opportunity that he had here to blow up and have a big game and salt away a starting job. He got outrushed by something called Leron McClain. Yeesh. I really thought that if Willis McGahee wasn't going to get a carry, that Ray Rice should have done more against the Bengals, and he did not step up, and frankly, very disappointed by that. And lastly, tight end Dante Rosario. Steve Smith's out for another game. He's a good start. Once Steve Smith comes back, you got to figure that Rosario's numbers are going to go away. But you know what? If you sloughed off the tight end position for a long time, sure, go ahead and pick him up. All right, so a lot of different things for you here. Appreciate you taking the opportunity here to watch Charch Chat at opensports.com.
So you think you can tackle a pro? There's only one way to find out. Click on fantasy at opensports.com.